Hey guys, welcome back to Anti-Hedge. Today we're going to be covering HBAR. Definitely one of the more interesting subjects and definitely one of the cryptos we're more bullish on. But before we continue, we just got to say one thing. This is not financial advice, so we do not accept liabilities for losses that may incur. It's all up to you guys. This is your portfolio, not ours. We're just giving you news. So moving forward, HBAR. We saw the price drop down recently. Especially, you know what, considering that the Bitcoin price took a dump, probably due to Trump media buying the dip and taking advantage of that. They bought $2.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. And generally speaking, Bitcoin controls the macro factor of all altcoins, and especially until altcoin season starts. And until our altcoin season starts, you know, we're basically just having to deal with all this Bitcoin dominance. But I want to just more or less cover the more important things, which is what makes HBAR such an interesting prospect as a crypto altcoin gem. And one of those reasons that I love it is because of the partnerships. And it has a massive list of partnerships. It's one of the reasons why I really like this project. And on that list of partnerships, I wanted to just kind of go over the top ones that I found most interesting, which includes, we got here, Google. We all know Google. We all use Google, whether we like it or not. It's massive. The key thing to remember is that HBAR plans on making a blockchain that'll function as like the mind and railway for AI generated products, meaning AI agents, AI databases, AI, just in general brain work. It's just going to create an organized spot for AI to function with. And that's kind of what blockchain is. I've always believed that blockchain will become the brain for AI, because right now the way databases are formed is you basically have like, it's a back-end mess, meaning you have all this data that's just compiled in an area and it's not like organized in a way that's easy for things to actually like be cohesive. So for example, like let's say ChatGPT wants to use data for its AI language model. It's just going to grab things on Google and it's going to assemble them using its artificial intelligence, right? But imagine now having a blockchain which is organized for information and having the AI just being able to grab that information however it sees fit. So I believe that once we actually see blockchain develop in a way that allows for AI to be organized, we're going to get much better prompts, better results, just better everything. It's going to level up our basic AI into a much more advanced one. Now, whether or not this is good, you can make that up for debate. But me personally, I know that it's inevitable that AI is happening. It's better to be with the trend than against the trend in times of change. Technology is evolving. They thought the printing press was evil when it came, and guess what? It made all the books that we have today, and now we're digital and we don't need books. So it goes to show that times evolve. So we have Google. We have LG, which is obviously a creator and distributor of electronic supplies and goods. And considering that smart products like smart TVs, smartphones, smart toasters, there's even smart toasters, I'm pretty sure about that. That's all being made by things like LG. And the ability for these things to function with data just means no more burnt toast. I'll move on to the next one, Dell Technologies. Dell. It's the computer brand that everybody knows but no one ever buys, but somehow is worth billions of dollars. I don't know anyone who owns a Dell, but I know that Dell Technologies have been a core for computer technology since IBM, which has been around since the 70s, which is another thing that we don't really see anymore, but it's still a massive company and it's still doing things that we don't know. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a dead project. I think that what it means is that these old computer companies are at a point where they've been, kind of set behind by things like Apple and Google and all these larger players that were faster during the shift in the 90s and the early 2000s. And now what they're doing is they're like, well, we fell behind and now we're getting ready to take a step ahead. Meaning that all these old companies that got left behind are now taking a step into a new direction. So while Apple and all these companies are still trying to fleece the markets for what they have, the product that they have, these old companies are like, we're going to come up with a new product and just kind of like take a step ahead of these companies. And that's how capitalism works, right? Left foot, right foot, left foot, right foot. What happened was the left foot happened, then we got the right foot, and we can't just keep taking right steps, right? Like our body doesn't function like that. So right now we're seeing the shift of Apple step to IBM step to coming back and Dell step to coming back. Now, I'm not going to get too much deeper into that. The reality is Dell is still a billion-dollar company, and Michael Dell, who is the founder of Dell Technologies, is a multi-billionaire. So clearly he did something right if these products are still valued at that market share. Now, we also have Deutsche Telekom, which is obviously Dutch communications, which is very interesting because telecom having to do with HBAR just means that they're probably going to create a new system of exchanging information, data, and telecom needs, which would be like AT&T. You know what I mean? It's Dutch AT&T type of thing. We also got IBM, International Business Computers, right? That's kind of been our business machines, international business machines. But they've been creating computers since like the 70s and 80s. These are the OGs of computers. This was a standard at one point, and there's still a multi-billion dollar company that hasn't disappeared, even though we don't see them as much. But I'm 90% sure most of our operating systems, especially like on a government level, probably still use these, which is insane to think that the Pentagon is being guarded by like 30-year-old computers. Wild stuff. I guess that's why people with a laptop are hacking into it frequently. But whatever. That's not for me to really talk about. That's just one of the partners that's on this list. We got here Ubisoft, big in gaming, globally renowned for making games and just being involved with the gaming and digital space. So it's not a small thing, another billion-dollar company, and definitely something interesting. We got Standard Bank, which is a standard bank, just another banking service, which means that banks are involved with HBAR. We got Nairobi Securities Exchange, which is basically trying to tokenize its securities, its stocks. And it's interesting because Ondo is trying to do the same thing as that. And it's wild to see how many people are going after this same market share. It's inevitable that these American companies are going to end up working together. I don't see them all working against each other. You know, it's very likely that they're all going to become like one cohesive, tokenized exchange for everything eventually. Something else too is you see here, Equity Labs. So Equity Labs is the one that was they were creating AI agents for NVIDIA, which was kind of something we mentioned in another short about an indirect partnership with NVIDIA and HBAR. Now, it's not officially confirmed that they are partners, but the reality is a partnership of Equity Labs is indirectly a partnership with NVIDIA. So it's kind of like Equity Labs in the middle, partner with HBAR, also partner with NVIDIA. So while they're not directly connected, the thing in the center is connected to both of them. So it could be one of those things where down the line they actually connect, depending on the momentum that HBAR gains and depending on the value that it creates as a database for AI and for NVIDIA's chips. Because NVIDIA creates the chips that lets AI function. If HBAR could create a system that would organize it so that the chips use less power or function better for less, let's say, hash power needed, that's a pretty great upgrade. That's something that NVIDIA would consider in their product lineup, right? Another interesting thing, this one has nothing to do with all these big partnerships, but it's just something small and a little bit interesting, is they have Haiti Pay. Now, Haiti Pay, like realistically, Haiti, such a small country, but here it is with Haiti Pay. And what I think what's going to happen is a lot of these cryptos, they come from an ethos of trying to bank the unbanked, meaning that in third world countries, or even just, here's a better metric, half of the world's population, roughly about 3 to 4 billion people, do not have a bank. They do not have banking services. How do these people get funded? Well, that's kind of what XLM was doing. And as you'll see here, HBAR having a partnership with Haiti Pay is just the first step of explaining how the ethos of crypto is banking the unbanked. And banking the unbanked starts by making sure that everyone has access to be able to provide liquidity. Like if you need to send Bitcoin to someone on the other end of the world, you could do that. Everyone in the world has a phone, but not everyone has a bank account. Crazy to think that phones per populace, meaning there's 8 billion people in the world, there's like 1.5 phones per person, but there's 50% of people with bank accounts. Do you know how nuts that is as a metric? that there's more smartphones than bank accounts, kind of wild. But it makes sense because smartphones are accessible. You could carry them everywhere, which is why the future of banking is going to be in your phone and in your hands. It's inevitable. So that's why I wanted to mention HBAR, not because the partnership is massive, but because the ethos behind the ideology is massive. Another thing here too, right? We got BitGo and we have Australian Payments Plus. Digital asset platform. Whole point is that they're tokenizing things. You notice the trend? Everyone wants to tokenize the real world. Tokenization of the real world is inevitable. It's going to be the only way to verify reality at some point, especially with AI developing so fast. Blockchain and tokenization might be the only way that will be able to make our systems quantum resistant. And the reason being is because eventually quantum computing will become massive, and the only way to deal with a quantum reality is with a quantum infrastructure. And that's what blockchain and all this stuff is. It's to create the infrastructure for it. So that way we don't have issues with, let's say, a hostile nation or a hostile state using quantum computing to potentially hack or disrupt us. And that's a real thing, because even the World Economic Forum, which are a bunch of creeps who basically meet globally to tell us, the peasants, the peasant class, how we should live. But politics aside of what the World Economic Forum is, we should just remember that they were warning us that there's going to be a global system hack sooner or later, and that's possible. Even if it's not by a third-party country like China or Russia, it could just be the World Economic Forum planning that just to fuck around with us, because they like doing that. I think that's why we're heading to a quantum future. It's basically to force a shift that isn't as easily available. Moving forward to another one that's not listed, but it is on the list, is Boeing. So Boeing joined up with Hedera a long time ago, and another billion-dollar company. And even though they had a very questionable reputation recently, obviously because, you know, whistleblowers tend to disappear when they talk about Boeing, doesn't change the fact that it's a multi-billion-dollar corporation that's partnered with Hedera. So, me personally, I think Boeing is, whoever's running Boeing is a monster. But it doesn't change the fact that there's a reality behind the fact that they are partnered with them. And I think that in order to be financially successful in stocks or crypto is being able to separate those realities. I don't have to necessarily agree with a company to understand that its value and investment is real. Meaning that just because I don't agree with Boeing doesn't mean that I won't invest in Hedera because it has a partnership with them. While I'll never buy their products because I'm never going to have a jet, it doesn't change the fact, or a billion-dollar war machine, I should also mention that. It doesn't change the fact that HBAR will potentially have something to do with how their planes operate in the future. Now, another interesting one here was UBI, United Bank of India. What's so interesting about the United Bank of India? India has tried to ban crypto multiple times, and here we are with the United Bank of India signing up for Hedera's blockchain. Why is that? Because the reality is when you can't beat them, you join them. India is no different than any other country that has jumped on the crypto train. The reality is that having one bank function well with HBAR is just the platform and the use case, the ground for more banks to sign up with them. And the thing about banks is they just click the button and they print money. So if they just keep clicking that print money button and that money flows into HBAR, it's gonna pop off. Now, jumping to the next thing that's very interesting about HBAR, and it has nothing to do with partnerships, it has to do with the spot Hedera ETF. So the SEC is still in review for it. And, you know, it was filed by not just Grayscale, but it was filed by Canary Capital, and it's being filed on the NASDAQ. Meaning that if it gets listed on the NASDAQ exchange as one of the technologies that's going to be basically becoming public for people to buy, that's the beginning of the crypto market becoming part of the stock market. And when we see that bond, that cohesive bond between the two, I believe it's going to create an ecosystem where boomers are going to be able to invest in crypto, which means any crypto that has an ETF is going to perform better than ones that don't. But also the other thing is I don't believe the stock market's going to function the way we understand it in the future. I think it's going to be one of those things where once crypto and stocks become cohesive, Money markets are going to bond within all three of them. And then it's going to become a system where everything kind of is intertradable within each other, meaning that bonds will be able to be collateralized or exchanged for crypto, and crypto will be able to be collateralized and backed for bonds or stocks. And it's going to become a system where all the money is being basically in a circular motion. Bonds could rotate to stocks, which could rotate into bonds could rotate into crypto, and stocks could rotate into bonds, and bonds into crypto, and I don't know if I explained that right, but the whole concept is that they'll all be able to rotate into each other. Bit bonds are just the beginning of that stretch where it's like crypto could go to bonds. Well, how about bonds could go to crypto? Oh, you see, that's one-way connection. Crypto is partnering with, like Hedera, for example, is partnering with all these big companies. That's stocks to crypto. That's the web. That's the connection, right? Stocks, every time they issue debt, that's a bond. They're going into the bond market. They're receiving money from the bond market. So already that's a web. The reality is the webs are individually created in all these things, but they're just not interchangeable. Like we can't web them all like this yet, but we could web them in a circle. Maybe that's a better way of me explaining it. And that's how I see the finance markets becoming over the next few years. It's inevitable with the way the system is growing. Once this ETF gets approved, we're going to see a huge change in HBAR's price, in my honest opinion. We saw what happened with the Bitcoin ETF. It flew, and it's going to fly again when other ETFs get passed. Now, here's another thing that I found interesting. It was dropped recently, and they were talking about how Bang Social CEO was talking about, you know, Ripple and all this stuff. But here's the thing. It had people talking about whether Bang Social, HBAR/Ripple could be teaming up in a big way down the line. So far, they've confirmed that there could be a deal. So you see here, like no one outside of this small circle of people confirmed that there could be a deal. But the rumor is that there could be a deal that could be brokering a partnership between XRP and HBAR, which is very interesting stuff because that would be one of crypto's biggest, let's say top 10 coins interacting with another coin in the American atmosphere, the American ecosystem. And the American ecosystem is going to be big in crypto because that's where Trump has already started to push for zero capital gains for crypto. And that is going to be what makes the US economy boom for crypto. And you'll notice here that they even mentioned here, it's like they see HBAR as a major piece of Bank Social's plan, and they want to use XRP as part of like a dual chain setup where it's like the actual computation and quantum stuff would be done with HBAR and the money movement will be done with XRP. So HBAR stays the core and XRP steps into the picture too. So if that partnership rolls well, there's no reason why they won't work together on other stuff. And to be honest, I think that that's the inevitability of interoperable blockchains working together to create an ecosystem where they all flow and function into each other, right? So I guess that's more or less going to cover this video. I don't really have much else to bring to you regarding HBAR, but I hope that you enjoyed the subject matter of this video, and I'm definitely happy to be able to bring it to you. And once again, welcome to Anti-Hedge. Like, comment, subscribe. Have a great day.